All right, here we go. We are live and we are coming to you from the Dev Talk Show on November 17th of 2021. Welcome to everyone. Glad that you can be here with us on a pretty special Dev Talk Show because we hope that some of you are joining us from the .NET Foundation list of post .NET Conf events. Because tonight we're going to talk about .NET Conf. That was last week. It was the conference put on by the .NET team announcing a new .NET version, new features, different frameworks, all kinds of new capabilities. And we're going to talk about a couple of them. We're not going to replay the conference here, but what we like to do, if you're a fan of this show, is we like to work out stuff live. So first of all, I want to say hi, everybody. Say hi to my co-hosts, Andy Schwam and Rich Ross. How are you tonight, Rich? Am I not hearing
Rich on mute?
Rich was on mute because I was playing with all the buttons here. Yeah, thanks. Good to be here. Just listening in the background, making sure everybody is up and running this time around. So thanks. Thanks for leading us off here.
Awesome. And how's it going, Andy?
It is going pretty well. Things are good. Excited about the show tonight. There's just so much new stuff coming out, or out, that came out, and I feel like, I don't know. This is a pretty big release. There's like a lot of exciting stuff here. Kind of. I don't know. It almost feels like. I don't know. It's a bigger release than I was thinking it was going to be, I think, or a bigger day, like with all these products together.
Yeah. So we don't have any slides or anything. This isn't really a presentation, but I guess, just to sum it up, .NET 6 is what they call an LTS release, which means
right.
that they expect multiple years of support, and I just don't have the date in front of me. It's not like some of the releases that are current releases where now that .NET 6 is out, there actually is a clock ticking on a release that's labeled current to move up to .NET 6. And if you kind of know what .NET is, maybe a good little refresher is .NET 6 is the evolution of .NET Core, which is the cross-platform version. High and definitely high performance, cloud ready version of .NET. It is not the .NET framework, which is the traditional framework that we known for a couple decades now. That is Windows based, and that .NET framework is still out there. You can still use it, but .NET 6 is really that line of .NET Core. It's just the core name is going away because This is it. This is the modern version.
Yeah, I mean the core name went away with 5, right? First it was
right.
.NET Core, and it was .NET Core 3, I guess, right? That was still .NET Core 3, and then they jumped and they called it .NET 5. Which I will say that I think one thing that's kind of funny and confusing about the naming, and listen, naming is hard, right? I know there's lots of debates on the naming, but what's kind of funny about this is that we have .NET Framework and we have .NET 6, right? Which we say, well, that's not the .NET Framework, it's just .NET 6. But it is a framework, right? It still is a framework. And so it's kind of funny because it's like, if you say, well, what framework are you using? Oh, I'm using .NET 6. But
yeah.
But not.
I've tried really hard to stop using the word framework just to avoid confusion, but it's hard because it's a word and it's right. It's not wrong.
Right. It's a little tricky because we're just used to it, right? And then on top of that, well, so we dropped core, but as part of the big release day, there's a new version of ASP.NET Core 6.
Right.
So ASP.NET kept the core name.
Right.
So it's .NET 6 without the word core, right? ASP.NET Core 6.
Yeah. Fun.
and C# 10, which is just a little old C#, like doesn't have any. It's good, nice and simple.
Yeah, F# got a rev too. It's F# 6, and
6. Yeah, wow.
a couple features in there that I think, if you're an F# user, are interesting. Some syntax changes, but probably the biggest one. And again, if you don't know anything about F#, then what I'm going to say might not sound like anything, but there's a computation expression now for tasks where your asynchronous operations just use the .NET task-based asynchronous pattern, which is the pattern C# developers are used to with await and async and all of that. F# had an async pattern before the task-based asynchronous pattern, and so there was always this little, it's not that it wasn't compatible, but you would start in the async pattern, and then you would have to do what essentially, just to make it simpler for somebody who knows C#, you would have to basically write a little bit of code to say, okay, now turn this into a task, or let's use the async pattern from task, right? Because you had to convert back and forth. So that was a big thing. It's interesting to see some of my friends in F# Twitter, the F# Twitterverse, talk about the merits of that. F#'s an interesting little corner of .NET. and it's one that I actually really like. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder, and I don't mean this, to be negative, right? Because it's loved by people that use it.
Yeah.
But I wonder what the sort of ratio of like C# to F# developers. It's got to be a pretty big difference between the in the populations there.
Yeah, like I called it a little corner of .NET, and I hope that wasn't. I hope that didn't make anyone upset, because I think it's, if you're wondering about the merits of learning another programming language, certainly there are plenty of great choices. What's interesting about learning F# is that you get to kind of compare and contrast it with C# in the context of the same platform. That's a really interesting way to look at it and be like, huh, so here I am in this language that like, yes, it's using the things that I'm familiar with, but in such a different way, and it's compatible. And I've actually liked how it's really gotten me to think about programming. So something to try, right? No need to dive into it tomorrow. But
yeah, that's right. But I don't know what else is going on. Fonts.
Yeah, so what else? There's a I don't know if we want to take a look at the .NET YouTube channel or anything to kind of, because we definitely want to talk about
that.
Yeah, why don't I if I share my screen real quick, I'll steal it from Andy.
No,
here.
That's no problem at all. Yeah. I don't think I need to cancel, but I will just in case.
Nah, I got it. So if you want to see what happened, we'll have I'm ready whenever you are, Rich, to share screen. There we go. So if you want to see what happened at .NET Conf, you go to youtube.com/.net, DOTNET, and you can start off with the keynote, which I thought I had up here. Let's take a look here. I wanted to have this already, so sorry that I'm scrolling, but here we go. A good place to start is this keynote, because Scott Hunter leads it and talks about all the things you can do with .NET. Like he calls it a unified development platform where you could build for the cloud, you could build for the web, you could build for desktop, mobile, you can do gaming with Unity, and actually there's other platforms that use C# as well. I think Godot uses C# as well. And so that's kind of interesting. Plus the keynote, they have a sample application that they run through a lot of different scenarios, which include deploying it to the cloud and a web front end and a mobile version and things like that. If you're into C#, there's a talk on what's new in C# 10. And then tonight we are going to take a look at minimal APIs which is we already have API-based controllers, and minimal APIs is an even more concise syntax for building a web API, which
yeah, don't show it. Don't show it. You're giving away the secrets here. You know,
you might really like it. And so there's plenty of great videos and stuff here to watch. We can even talk about a few more of these a little bit later, but I would say that's your source. And because it was 2 full days of content, right? And then 2 full days of content plus a 3rd day with 24 hours of content, including all kinds of guest speakers and MVPs and other .NET influencers from all over the world. And even today, we the one that you see up here at the top, Jeff Fritz spent an hour taking questions from the community. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty
awesome.
Cool.
You know, also, I don't know if this is like, you know, the best place to go, but there's also, I believe all the content is up on channel 9 as well, right? I'm looking at that, and I do see the stuff, and I wonder if that's you know, they might have some ways to organize a little better because it's their own website or something like that. But
so there is a playlist, and maybe the best thing for me to do is to give you all the link to this playlist. So the playlist is 82 videos. So why don't I get this link into the chat? Because that, and we'll make sure we get it in the comments and so forth. But yeah, that's it for me as far as, you know, if you want to watch .NET Conf, because we certainly can't go over 82 videos here. We've actually just picked one thing to talk about as a group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I do see, I'm looking in the chat. So there's a question from Jose Silva. When possible, could you talk about whether the .NET runtime was rewritten to be like the Mono runtime? Thanks. And it looks like there's a follow-up. My answer, .NET 6 is faster than V5. New features in C# 10, MAUI. Yeah. So I don't know about if it's been rewritten. Are you guys familiar with that?
So I think, and I'm going to say that I'm not 100% certain, but with previous releases of .NET Core, Mono was still shipped kind of side by side. And I think one of the points now is we're getting to the point where .NET 6 is able to take the place of what you needed Mono for. That includes scenarios that involve Android and MAUI, what you used to use Xamarin for, and some of those scenarios that maybe weren't really incorporated into the .NET Core line of code. I don't think that means, you know, I'm not sure what that means about a Mono future because I just haven't gone and looked in a little while. But certainly Mono was the cross-platform version that was used, you know, for a long time side by side with .NET Framework. Some folks would use Mono to run things on Linux, or it's certainly how Xamarin came to be. If not for Mono, there's no Xamarin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think it is, but I admit that I am not. I'm not sure that I'm the expert. I would hate to have misled everyone there. So.
Right. And I'm not sure I understand the question because it says rewritten to be like the Mono runtime. So Mono was .NET essentially, right, for other platform, and then now .NET 6 and .NET 5 before it were cross-platform as well. So if that's what it means to be like the Mono runtime, then I think the answer is yes. But, you know, I don't think they, other than that, I'm not really sure what would make it more like Mono, you know. But I don't use Mono, so it's kind of hard to say from my perspective. But yeah, I just happened to see, I turned my head and I saw the comments there. And Jose, we appreciate the questions and the comments.
Thank you.
Thanks for throwing that out there. I don't know if we had the best answer for you tonight. We don't profess to know everything. I don't profess to know much. Luckily, Chris is here, and Rich, and between the three of us, we know a decent amount, right? I guess that's a safe way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, there was a time when Unity C# support was based on mono. That's how the Unity team brought C# in. It now uses .NET, but that was kind of how they got the ball rolling. So
yeah. So so you were saying that we were going to take a look at the minimal API feature, right? So if you want, I can share my screen. Let me get that going here. Let's see. All right, Rich, I am set, so this should be fine. Hopefully it's going to be okay. So what do you see here? Well, Visual Studio 2022. And I got to say, I like it. I mean, I don't always make a big deal about some of these features, but, these, wait for that thing to go away here, a little snippet. But I like these, oh, that's not going to go away. Oh, I like these new buttons, the new icons on here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't know if let's see if I can do it like this.
Right. They have like this. They have like this outline feel.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't know how well that shows up on video, but we've had new icons before, and I haven't gotten all that excited about it, but these seem to pop. I actually like these icons. That was a part of the new. I guess they have some new fonts and some new styling to Visual Studio 2022, and I think it looks pretty nice. So that's pretty cool. So I'm also using presentation mode, which is always worth a mention because I think this is something a lot of people forget about. We sometimes even forget about. So to do that, I've got this extension installed, which is called Tweaks. Somewhere it's in here. Why isn't it showing under installed? Oh, interesting. It doesn't show. It doesn't show on this version of Visual Studio 2022. It is installed on my other version, the non-presentation mode. Like you don't see, it's kind of a weird concept here, right? But if you install the Tweaks allows you to open up another instance of Visual Studio, and it will be in demo mode. But you don't actually see that version of Visual Studio then needs to get all its extensions and all its features set up for you. And I set it up with some bigger fonts and things like that. I increased the font of the Solution Explorer. But what's funny is that now this version of Visual Studio 2022 does not have the Tweaks extension, which is kind of a strange concept if you think about it. But anyway, so I'm using presentation mode. And we're going to take a look at minimal API. So minimal API, again, just to go back a step, is part of ASP.NET Core 6.0. Now we've had Web API for a while, right? And I could be wrong about this. I'm going to simplify this. Like this minimal API doesn't change so much the way the feature that API delivers to a consumer, right? I don't think it's added, and there might be some features that I don't know about. Don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert on this, but it's really more of a change of the way we can build the application in the code structure from a minimal syntax, right? It's sort of the same Web API we had before, but it's just a little slicker to use from a developer standpoint, right? So I thought it would be interesting. I have this solution open up here, and I have this. This is a .NET Core 3.1 API project, right? And you can see in this one, you have, and for those of this isn't really intro to Web API here, right? But the way it works is you have a controller, right? And hopefully people are familiar with that. You have a controller. It is an API controller. I can zoom in a little bit on that to make that easier. And it has a route that just says controller here. It's not that specific in this case. And then this is a class, right? It's a class called the Weather Forecast Controller, and inside it there are actions, right? This action is named get, and it is has the HTTP get attribute above it, and so this is going to respond to a get. So if I ran this, on localhost, 3000 or something like that, I guess if you just made a GET request to that URL, you would get this weather forecast data coming back, right? And but it's a class, right? And you would have multiple classes. So I might have a weather forecast controller that might have a GET method and a post, right? I might want to save weather information or whatever. And I don't know if I also had a trying to think of what else would go with a weather forecast application, but maybe I can save all the places I live so I can get weather forecasts. I don't know, I'm making this up. But so I would have like a location controller where I would add my locations and I could get my locations and things like that, right? So you would have these classes that act as, well, they're called controllers because they control what the API does, right? They're basically, their job is to handle requests, right, and to respond to them, right, and to give out a response, right? And this is kind of what it looked like, right? This was the basic control. You're trying to say something, Chris, or?
No, I'm just listening. Yeah,
okay.
You're right.
Yeah, cool. No, I just didn't want to cut you off. And so there was a couple of things that you needed to do to get this thing working, right? So to start off with, you have a program class in here, and it has the main, and it creates this host builder. And I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of this, but this pretty much provides a way to serve the, and I hope I'm saying that right, a way to serve the API, right? It's hosting it, and it tells it then when it builds this web app to use the startup named startup, right? And so then there's another class over here called startup. And in here is where you go through, and I didn't do anything to this. This is boilerplate, like when you just create it. And you do some configuration. So you have to configure a bunch of stuff. So here we're adding controllers, things like that. Down here in the configure method, you tell it to use HTTP redirection, use routing, use authorization for security, right? You do a whole bunch of stuff, and for the endpoints, you're mapping the controllers in here so that it all just kind of works, right? This is the sort of boilerplate code that goes to making the API work, right?
Right.
And it's not a huge amount of code, but I think there was a desire to make this just simpler, make the barrier to entry less cumbersome, and sort of simplify the whole thing, right? I think that's sort of the goal of minimal API, right? I'm not certainly. I think if I understand correctly, .NET Core 6 is faster than previous versions and stuff like that. That's all ASP.NET stuff. From the API perspective, though, at the end of the day, if we have a weather forecast API over here that looks like this, all we're really doing is changing the way we build this, but this sort of internal logic, that's the same, right? It's just, the API will do the same thing it did, before. It just does it in a cleaner way now. So I also have in here,
Well, I was just going to say, so some of the things that you have to do to use this controller-based web API, right, is first of all, your controllers are deriving from controller base. Like you said, there's a class that's created.
Yeah,
there are some conventions,
like structure and overhead.
Yeah,
maybe it's a good one.
There are some conventions that you learn that reduce noise. For example, by putting that HTTP GET attribute, you're basically saying that if somebody goes to your site /weather forecast and they get, that's the code that's going to run. Yeah. Now, that's by convention, right?
Yeah, and you end up. That's a good point you're bringing up, because we've been using this for a while, so we're used to the convention.
Yes.
And if you're like me, I don't even see it. Like I know where to look in here, and so while someone coming in for the first time might think this is noisy, right?
Yes.
Well, I look in here, I know right when I'm, you know, I kind of hone in on the get, and I know that's where my code goes, and the rest of it sort of disappears. But I think a lot of people didn't like that, right? I mean,
Well,
maybe not
I think
overwhelmingly, but that's the whole idea behind minimal is, you know, we'll get there in a
yeah.
minute, but
I mean, so you've brought up the default project, and the default project I think does a good job of trying to reduce what might be noise, but there's nothing that prevents you from calling that method anything. It doesn't have to be get. You could call it whatever you want. And
right.
if you want to have what certainly not all APIs have to be RESTful. Sometimes people have what you might call like an RPC, a remote procedure call API, where they want to call a method like with a name. That's all supported too. And what's kind of interesting is look at how, you know, you had to have a class for this, and you also there's the convention of calling the class something controller, deriving from controller base. I agree that because we, like you and I, Andy, and a lot of other .NET developers have spent a long time with the web API conventions, maybe even up to 10 years or more now, it melts away for us, I think.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. But it is still there, right? You can't deny that it's still there. So, but I'm glad you brought that up. So the next thing I wanted to show was that in this solution here, I created, it's called the minimal API demo, so don't let that confuse you. But I went in and I said, I want to create a new web API project. And I said, don't use the minimal API. I'll show you how we do that in a minute. But this is not minimal API, but this was a 3.1. This is an ASP.NET 6, okay? So if we look at this project, we'll see that it has the weather forecast controller, right? Because it's still using controllers. It's not minimal API. And this kind of stuff looks exactly the same. I think it's, I mean, I didn't look line by line, but it looks exactly the same to me. However, notice over here, we've got a program, but we don't have startup. So this is, I think, interesting. So this is sort of one of the first interesting things we see. And this isn't really a minimal API thing. This is an ASP.NET Core 6 thing, right? That's the parent, right? You know, ASP.NET is the ASP.NET Core is the framework we're using. Minimal API is a feature, if you want to call it that. So what do we see here? To contrast, as a matter of fact, you know what? Let's put these up side by side.
Yeah. So like you see, there's startup CS, and we're, you know, not here.
Yeah, wait, hang on a second. Can I do 3 tabs? I think I can, right? I don't. I want to go. What am I looking for here? Where's
I think you want a vertical document group, right? In order to split them.
I'm not seeing that.
Near the bottom.
It's funny, like
near the bottom.
What's that? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Vertical. Yeah. I don't know why. It's funny when you're doing stuff and you can't see it at all when you're like driving, you know.
Oh,
so
I know.
I can do. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I wasn't sure if this would work. Let me minimize some of this stuff. So this is the new one over here, program. The old stuff had a startup and a program. Now look at, just for kicks here. This thing is 52 lines, and this one's 27 lines. And over here, we're down to 26. Okay. Now, some of this gets into some other features. So it gets a little interesting here. We're sort of mishmashing features here, but I think it's all interesting stuff. First of all, this comes with a lot of usings. Interestingly, some of these aren't even necessary. So I'm not sure why they include those in here, because you can see that they're grayed out. I hope that comes through on the video, but these are gray. So some of these aren't even needed. That's odd to me. Maybe they just assume you're going to need them for most of the stuff. I don't know. But what we have here is the program, right? Creates the host builder, does that stuff, and it does these things. And then it calls, essentially, here it's saying, okay, go over to startup and do your thing.
Use that class.
It configures all this stuff. So let's take a look and see. Well, this says add controllers. So this one says map controllers. I guess maybe that's the... I honestly didn't look at this beforehand. I'm just thinking about this for the first time. So, so then it has some stuff about if we're in development, use developer exception page. On this side, It's configured Swagger by default, right? You could do Swagger in the old one. I like this, and we'll talk about Swagger in a couple minutes. Interestingly, it doesn't say use developer exception page, but that is now sort of by default. When you're in development, you get the developer exception page. I mean, there might be a way to turn it off, but you don't need to turn it on anymore. You're getting that, right? But then what else do we see? Use HTTPS redirection, got that. Use routing, we're not seeing that. But there's other ways to do that, but use authorization, right? And then, they're not the same. They're not the same, but this thing is doing everything. So I skipped the top. At the top, here it is, create builder, right? Web application create builder. That's this thing over here. That's my startup. I mean, that's my program, I think, right?
Right.
It's hard to see it, but this is the builder. And then look at this. They cleaned this up, and it is so much smaller. Now, one of the reasons it's smaller is that it's using a new feature called, what is it called? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking out.
Top level statements, right?
Top level statements, right?
That's one of the features. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a class called program.cs. It is a class, right? It's just that you don't need to say it's a class because that's what this file is. I think that's the way I look at it, right? I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but
basically they figure, since 99,000 times out of 100 when people write a program, they create a program class and a main method that if you have a file that doesn't bother with that, they're just going to generate it for you.
Right.
So as a C# developer, you know what's going on. But if you're kind of like, and some people just don't like ceremony. Some people might be brand new, and it's like, why should we bother people with classes and main methods? Just get to work.
Right. Matter of fact, like if I go in, I hope I'm right about this. If I go in and create a new console app.
Yeah, you'll see it.
New project. Let's add new project. And I'm just going to create a new console app, right? I'll just call it that. I'll stick it down here. Yeah, sure. I assume this is also going to use the top level statements here, right? So you can only have one of these things in your whole library, right? Like per library, right? Because it needs to start this. This is the thing that would be main, right? You can't have two mains or anything. You can only have one of these. But look how nice a console app is. There's no chrome around it, so to speak. There's no noise, right? Like what would it look like? It would look like, public class program,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then you'd have
public static void main, probably.
Right. I think that's what it said, right? And then
and you can do string args if you want, but I don't know that you have to.
Yeah, right.
I don't think you have to
say this is what it was, right?
I think that works.
Yeah, I think so, right? And if we're off by something, it's not that big a deal, right? Now, so
you also would have had using system because of the console. But we're getting ahead of ourselves on features.
Yeah, right. So there's all kinds of stuff going on here. I just kind of wanted to show that this isn't just for the web over, not this one, sorry, this one. So I'm losing my tabs here. I have a lot of tabs open for, it's not just for ASP.NET. This is a .NET feature. Let's undo all this junk and get rid of all that.
Yeah, it's a C# feature, and it's actually from C#9.
C#9, right? Good point. Yeah, good point. All right, so let's close that. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of all these, actually, right?
And that's just to point out that they're using a feature there. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's a lot of interesting things going on here, and a lot of new stuff for people to take in, I think. So anyway, this was the only difference here in this project, this web project, is that it has the combined program and startup, but it's still using controllers, right? So now let's go in and let's add a new project. We'll add a ASP.NET Core Web. Let's just do API. ASP.NET Core Web API and C#, right? And we'll do that. And I'm going to use my little convention here. I'm going to call it minimal API demo dot minimal is what I called it, I think. It doesn't really matter, right? So now what do we see here? Well, .NET 6, you already mentioned, right? Long-term support. We're going to choose that. I don't really care about authentication, but I have options, right? I'll leave a lot of these defaults, but I'm going to come down here and look at this section here. So the first part says use controllers, and it's checked, right? So unchecked to use minimal APIs. We're going to do that. We're going to uncheck it. The other one is that it is checked. It says enable open API support. And this is why we saw the Swagger comments that were in the previous program, where there was that one part where it says use Swagger API. This sort of configures that Swagger stuff from the beginning. So, and matter of fact, we have some tips here, Swagger support, and this one is whether to use minimal APIs instead of controllers. Boy, I'm not sure that's a necessary tooltip, quite frankly.
Yeah, thanks a lot, huh?
The difference between these two statements there, use controllers, unchecked use minimal APIs, but wait, we'll help you out. What we mean is whether we should use minimal APIs instead of controllers. I'm getting a laugh out of that. So I'm going to uncheck this, but I'll leave the Swagger thing. And I have to stop and think every time I do that, but uncheck to use minimal API. So perfect. So we do that. And, you always get this page, this thing, which I just close, right? But here we are now. It's this minimal, okay? And it is pretty minimal. I mean, look, there's only a program in here. There's not a folder for controllers and things like that. Let's close that. I don't need that. And so let's take a look at what's in this program CS now, okay? So again, it's a top level statement, right? Looks the same, builder, create, builder, web application. This is the same stuff we saw before. Using Swagger if we're in development mode, use HTTP redirection. Okay, and then we start seeing some stuff that is, one of these things is not like the other, right? But let's take that out for a second here. And then this is a little extra stuff here, app.run, right? So this is the whole of my ASP.NET Web API, really, right? That's the code that makes this thing run. The problem is it doesn't do anything, right?
Right.
So when you create this from the template, they throw this stuff. I thought I would. Oh, okay. I don't know why I'm not getting that. Let's see. Okay. They throw this in. It's the standard, same thing we saw before, the weather forecast, right?
Yeah.
But what we see now is it is all, and I guess we'll talk about this a little bit, but I'm going to tear it down and sort of start from scratch again on this a little bit, I think. But here it says app.mapGet, right? And I got to tell you, let's just say we don't know anything about this.
Yeah, right. You're just reading the code. Yep.
Yeah. How intuitive is this to somebody? So now we've all seen this, right? I mean, unless you guys haven't seen this, we could play that game, but I think you have seen this before. If I was seeing this for the first time, I would say, well, I'm going to map a get. So, okay, I know enough about an API. This is probably, I want to do a get versus a post versus a put. Like, what verb am I using? So when I'm getting something, I'm going to map it to this. And again, this looks familiar to me. Like I'm seeing this. This looks like a route, right? Or this looks like a URL, right? Something I would use /weather forecast. At least I will say that to me, that's what it seemed like. Some people might say, oh, that wasn't as intuitive as you might think. But to me, it kind of was. Now here, you're really getting into like, how familiar are you with, what are they called? Like Lambda functions, or what are they called? I don't even know. The syntax, what these things, this syntax is.
That's a Lambda expression, right?
Yeah,
which
Lambda
is
or
just,
Lambda
it's a
function.
way of writing a function very concisely, but if you
Right.
squint, it kind of looks like what JavaScript developers call an arrow function, which
Yeah,
is a way of writing a function very concisely. So,
exactly.
yeah.
So this is our parameters, and there are none, right? And they're pretty much saying like this is the method. It doesn't have a name per se, right? But it doesn't really need a name because we're using the get. You know, ASP.NET is going to handle that for us. So it doesn't really matter that it doesn't really have a name, I guess. And then in the brackets here, you know, this is my method. And so this is going to look exactly, I think it looks exactly like what we had in the other class, which is to say, look at this forecast. There's like how does this work here? The forecast is going to select a new.
Yeah, it's basically creating an array. I don't want to call it an array, an enumerable of 5, and then selecting. It's filling it with new weather forecasts that are randomly generated.
Yeah,
Temperatures.
right. This is random. Right, that's right. So there's going to be 5 weather forecasts. You know,
Yeah.
5 days of weather, doing some random stuff against this weather forecast thing here, right? And anyway, it's going to return this forecast, right? So if we ran this, which we'll do, right? Let's see what happens when we run this. And so there's going to be a couple things we can look at here, right? And you know what? When we share, Visual Studio always does this kind of stuff slowly. This stuff happens like instantaneously normally, but because I'm sharing via Skype, it always seems to slow things down. So the first thing we notice is when I run this, it went to Swagger, right? Which is great. Now, it doesn't always go to Swagger. I'm in development mode. Remember, we saw that at the beginning. When in development mode, use Swagger. And Swagger is a great tool to, to sort of a tool for APIs and things like that. And you can see a bunch of stuff in here. So it shows the route, / weather forecast, right? So I'm at localhost :720 is my port. And currently I'm at Swagger /index, right? But if I wanted to, I could, I guess that's not copyable, huh? I thought it was. That's funny. Well, actually, I think if I do try it out, it gives it somewhere else. Okay, well, anyway, let's just put it in up here. So let's take this and put that there and put weather forecast. And if we do that, this is, hard to, whatever. This is the weather forecast data, right? That randomly generated chunk. There should be 5 of them in here, right? So I can call, it's an API, right? At the end of the day, my API does what it's supposed to do. Since I'm in a browser, it's automatically going to sort of do a get at this URL, right? So that works pretty easily. But if you're not familiar with Swagger, I can come in here and I can see the schema. Now, in this case, this shows what it would return, right? How cool is this? It's investigated that. And now this is not I don't want to spend too much time on Swagger. This is not part of minimal APIs or ASP.NET in general, right? It's Swagger. It's a different thing altogether, right? But how cool is this? It shows that my return is going to include a date, temperature in Celsius, temperature in Fahrenheit, and a summary, right? And then I can see how might I execute this. So it shows you a sample. This would be what the data might look like when it comes out. It's like so cool, right? It's JSON data and it's putting some fake default values in there or whatever it's doing there. And it shows it would be a 200, right? And I can try it out. And if I try it out, I can execute it. And it shows the curl script, shows the request URL. I knew something was copyable. I could have gotten it from here. And it shows the body, right? Now, in this case, not much we couldn't have done right in the browser. But when you get into more complicated APIs, this Swagger stuff is just a phenomenal tool to have at your disposal, right there, right? So this is an API. Now let's go back to our project. Well, another thing I want to show now, I'm a little out of the loop, so maybe this isn't new. I've told you on the show before, I don't always do software development, right? Like, I get in my manager hat a lot of times, but I love that this console that gets created, right? If I stop running here, right? Shift F5, and I stop, and I'm no longer running. I love the fact that this doesn't go away, right? Because it's basically saying press any key to close. It does that by default. Now, again, has this been there for a while? I don't remember, but what used to happen is you'd run your API, the results, you might write some log to the console, then you hit stop, and the console's gone, and you're like, I should have checked it before I closed the thing.
So I remember it in 2019 for sure.
It was doing this in 2019. Okay.
Yeah. And maybe 2017, but that's where I'm not 100%.
For some reason, I used 2019 for APIs, and I swear I don't remember this now. Maybe I didn't have it. I don't know. Maybe I did something.
Right, because see how that last line tells you can shut that behavior off, and it would be easy if that behavior was off to forget about it, right?
Yeah. Tools, options, debugging, automate. Oh, you know what? Somehow maybe I had that turned off, but it's a great feature, right? So I hit space, it's gone. Okay, fine. So now let's look at this a little bit closer. Let's get rid of this, right? So let's take a look at, the basics here, right? So basically, we want to do this. This is the basic thing you could do, right? I've taken out some of the stuff we had there before. I'm mapping a get, right? And I'm handling a route here, right? So this slash means like when I'm at my root of my application, I've got no parameters and I'm not doing anything, right? So I could say simply return hello world, right?
Yeah,
and if I did that, this is text and out it would come, right? And I feel like it's not worth running all these things, but I can run some of these things. Let's see. Let me just think about this. So this is basically this is an API, as simple as that. Like, now look how nice this is. This is one class, but I'm thinking at some point, if you have a large API, you might have, that many of these things. They wouldn't all say get, they would all have different things, but it could get pretty messy. And I'm not sure if there's a workaround to split out these things into different places. But what you can do, now again, remember this code would be, these sections would be long, right? There would be, lots of code in, forget whatever this is here, my fake code in here. If I'm demonstrating that right, each of these methods could get pretty long, right?
Yeah.
And you would have a lot of them, and this file could get pretty big, and that kind of bothers me. Since I'm only playing around with this, I haven't gotten to that point yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I haven't looked into that feature yet, if there's a way to break that down. But, oh, by the way, what I can tell you is if I ran this right now, you might think like, hey, there's no compiler, there's no warning happening here that I've used this same route all over the place, right? This is a problem, by the way, what I have here on my screen. And if I run this, I will get an exception. It will say you can't, at startup, it doesn't like that I tried to put all these things in here the same. So just to be clear, in case you were wondering what would happen. Oh, wow, I did put a lot of these in there, didn't I? Okay, so we've got this get. So there's a couple other things, and again, we can put as much code in here as we want, right, to do whatever we want to do in this section. But we're used to doing some things, so I don't know, I'm going to maybe go in a strange order here, but I wanted to talk about, like, what if I wanted to get a value from a config file, right? Well, what's great here is that I'm in this top level class here, which already has access to this application object, I guess is what it's called, right? It's a web application. So I can come in here and I can say, how about this? Let's do, I have a little, so avoid some typing here. I could say, let's go to my configuration file, right, and get the value for logging.log level default, right, which if we go over here, it's my app settings file. And, you know, of course, it says information in here, but sometimes we need to get values out of here, right? Sometimes we need to get, what if I needed a connection string? I could go to app.configuration and get connection string. I have access to all those things here, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if I do that, I could also just return, you know, the level here, right? So that would be my, now I'm not going to run this because I hope it's sort of self-explanatory, because I think running it all the time just takes a while. But here's how easy it is to get to my configuration, right? Because I'm in a class that already has the app there, okay? Another thing that's kind of easy to do here is logging. I could do something like this, right? Now, not even in the get method, but let's say I want to do something like run, I don't know where I would put this, but like, you know, app logger, log information the app has started. And I could even go in here and say, you know, for whatever reason I want to do this, inside, like that, right? If I run this, and I am going to show you a feature right now that does not work, as far as I know. But okay, so here's my thing. Now look, so I haven't executed anything yet, but I started my app, and this is really hard to see. Wow, the font on that is bad. But it doesn't say started. I wonder if that's because I put it afterwards. Because in the past, I saw it. I'm just going to try something real quick here. Stop this for a sec. And I'm going to move that up a level because I didn't think it mattered. I thought it would just map all these things and it would still come down to here, right? But when I did this before, I had this like, I swear I just stuck it like here or something like that. I don't know where I had it. By the way, app dot, oh, no, I didn't see it there. I saw it a second ago. You know, this, what is this, IntelliCode, right? App.use MVC. It's probably not the right use case in this, but you get all that kind of cool
sure,
you know, tool helping and stuff like that. So I want to run this again. I could have shown that other feature I wanted to show, but I'll show it in a second. Let's just see what happens with this case and see if I'm right. I must be doing something wrong, but because it's not showing it there at all. Okay, well maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have to actually execute something. So let's find out. Let's go to Swagger. It always opens on the wrong thing. I'll just do try it out, execute. Okay, I got my weather forecast, and now if I look in here.
Are you restarting the app? I just don't remember. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't remember.
I don't know why it's not showing it at all. It's odd. Maybe, I don't know why it's not showing it. It did that before. Okay, hang on a second. Maybe I did something wrong here. Logger, log information.
Was there any setup to say that you wanted to log to the console that you remember?
No, because what I noticed is it automatically went to the console. Like that's what it did. Now, unless, no, I don't know. That's pretty weird because I did this earlier, just exactly this, and it went to the console. Odd. Now, what I was actually going to show is that while I'm running, you might think like, hey, I can move this anywhere I want, right? And I can use, what's it called? I have it in my notes here. Hot reload. Okay, you think like, hey, you run the app and use hot reload. As far as I can tell, hot reload does not work inside of the program.cs file. And that's probably because this is too critical to starting the application, because I can show hot reload working in another file. And I'll do that later. But in case you're wondering about hot reload, it doesn't work at least not as far as I can tell, within here, within the program.cs. And I didn't check that, but it seems to make sense to me, like why that wouldn't work. You know what I mean? There's too much like startup stuff happening here. So anyway, all right, so the logging, that kind of was a disappointing demo. I'm not sure why that didn't work. But the next thing you might think is, well, this is great. I'm used to having you know, my class, my controller class, and my methods, my actions, and stuff like that. And I'm used to doing dependency injection, right? So you might be wondering, well, how would that work in here, right? By the way, it's also another thing is that I like to use, you know, I said these methods can get long, right? You can have a lot of these and they can get long. But let's say I have something like a data service, right? And I'm just going to go over here and I'll add a class, add class, and I'll call it data service. I'll throw some code into here. Okay, so what am I doing here? I got an interface and I've got a method that returns a list of strings, right? Nothing fancy here. But let me, whoops, this thing is over there. Let's close that now. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to inject it into here so I can use that in here, right? So, well, this is our parameters in here. So we're going to think, okay, that's not too bad. Usually when I do dependency injection, I have to pass something into a constructor. Well, that's constructor dependency injection, to be clear, but it's sort of the most common. But I'm used to doing it at the constructor level where I might inject something into here and save it off as a class variable, et cetera, and I could use it. So typical for dependency injection, you have to come up to here and do this. Builder services, and I can do add transient, which is just one of the ways to do dependency. This is sort of straightforward, the way we've done dependency injection in the past, right? And I want to say, if I'm looking for an IDEs service, give me a data service, right? Nothing terribly fancy here. Now I'll just have to add my my using. Now, interestingly, this using came up here. Now I can move that out to a global using. That's another feature of C#, I guess.
Yep.
But for now, let's just leave that there. So I've got this. So now what I want to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say, okay, I want an iData service, and I'll call it data service, right? And let's just do this. Let's just say, get rid of this stuff. I don't need this anymore.
So I was going to say, before you run this, I was going to have you as a bonus put back your startup log information before the app run. I just want to check something.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. But that's not what you're showing, but I'm curious about something.
Yeah. So look, here's my dependency injection, right? Data service, get strings, and I'm going to return that from my get method. That's pretty straightforward, right? Now I might want to call it, what if I wanted to do something even fancier and say, I want my, I'm going to call it numbers, right? I don't want to confuse you, but this thing returns 4 numbers, right? It returns strings of numbers, but right. Well, I'm going to call it, I decided to call it, not named it, but I gave it a specific route. So it doesn't just answer to the root anymore. I have to go to numbers, okay? But that's okay. I'm just showing that, we can do that as well. So now, and Chris, you wanted me to put back in that.
Yeah, just throw an app.logger.log information like on line 27 or so.
That's where I had it the last time.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Just leave that there.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I did something stupid, so it'd be great if you notice something. Anyway, yeah. So I can do this, and now I'll even put a breakpoint in here just to show how this is going to work. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Take a drink of water. We got any questions in here? I see something in the comment about hot reload. Let's see. Excuse me. Hello,
Yeah.
Ancient Coder. Ancient Coder says hot reload will help you. Except in this case, I could be wrong, but I don't think it will. But I want to, we can check into that. I don't think hot reload works in the program. But so I'll show hot reload in a second, okay? Because it will work. So anyway, let's try this out. So I try it out, and it's gonna. Oh, I gotta hit execute. It's gonna go to that weather forecast. Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
it's like,
hang on. You know, oh, I know what's wrong. I know why that thing didn't work before. I'm running the wrong app.
You're running the app that's not they're not working on. Nice.
Yes, that's
so set
why
it as a startup project. Yeah. See?
it didn't work before. And so before I was showing it work, I was actually, well, that's kind of lame. I was showing the output from the other thing. It just had the same weather forecast. Didn't matter. That's a silly mistake, and I apologize for that. Now we'll see this log information, by the way. I'm pretty confident we will. So let's put it in here also, just so we know that, right? Inside, I'll just call it, right? And well, that was a classic rookie move there. Okay, so now we're in here, and I can see that my let's go into here. Oh, what did I? Oh, I hit F10 by mistake.
It's just starting up the app.
No problem. Oh, you know why? Because I was at the map method.
Yeah.
Right. I actually had my breakpoint in the wrong spot. Okay, no problem there. So let's do numbers. Now it's at /numbers. Try it out. Execute. Comes into here. You can see my data service has been populated by a minimal, whatever .data service. And now we should see my log method in here, which is very hard to read. But you can see the started line up here, kind of covered up a little bit, but you can see that. And the inside one. So that logging works, and at least we have a good reason why it wasn't working. I can go in here, and I can get strings and return that. And now here's my output, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Cool. Now let's check out hot reload while we're in here.
Yeah, let's get that enabled.
So if I go to my data service, right? And I add something into here. Now I'm still running. You see this? I haven't stopped.
Yep.
Still says continue, right? Like in other words, I'm not stopped here, right? Let's add in 5. Why not? 5's a good number. Okay. Now I'm going to hit the hot reload button. Okay. And now, where am I? Back to my browser window that is still open. Okay. I'm going to try it again. Execute. I'm not even going to stop, but there's 5.
Yeah,
hot reload.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not restart my application, but let me show you this. If I try to do this is my only bit of experiment that I have here. If I decide to move this, okay, here I am, still live, and I do that, okay. Now the last time I tried this, I think I got an error. Let's see if I'm right. Wait, feature, edit, and continue as current. Oh, well, that's interesting. See that up there?
Yeah.
That's interesting. But I want to try it again. Let me get rid of that. Because last time I did, in fact, get an error. First of all, I got to save that. Okay. I don't know if that matters. I'll save everything. Oh, see, that's interesting. Now I'm getting a different problem, but this sounds more like a bug than a. That's interesting, right? I swear that's not what happened to me.
I would say, let's try a couple things. Like, let's restart the app, and then move that log message again. And here's the reason why I think this could be asking a lot. Is I wonder if by trying to change the pipeline, is the problem, right? Because
that's what I'm saying. This program
but let's
is
see.
like, this is startup. Like this is stuff that happens before you're running your application, right? And
but at the same time, what I think is odd,
like,
I would expect for you to be able to change, like if you change what you log in the numbers, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Still getting that same error up here.
But now by contrast, let's say you restart. And what if instead of trying to change like, the ASP.NET Core pipeline, what if you change the log information message on the fly? The one for inside, yeah. Because that might work. That has a better shot at working, right?
Yeah.
Because you're changing the Lambda that's going to be called, you're not changing the pipeline.
I still think it's not going to work, but we'll try this again. Inside again, whatever that means, right? Okay. Ooh.
And the reason I think that has a better chance of success is that.
Hang on, this isn't saved though. Do I have to
it's not saved. That's true. That's true.
It still seems to work. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to execute it. I don't know what's going on with all that, right? It would be nice because I'm going to try one more thing real quick while we're at this. And then let's see that. Sorry, hit the wrong button here. And now if we look over here, inside again, I know that's hard to see, but there it is. So I want to try something different, right? Because you were saying, hey, let's just change that string, right?
Yep.
What if I want to go in here and say var var x equals hello world. I'm changing code now, not just a string literal. You know what I mean? And well, that's kind of lame. So I'll just return it, like whatever. Okay. So I'm changing the output. I'm not using that anymore. Hopefully that's not going to matter. Yeah, I'm going to save it. So this is what I was getting before. Edits were made, which cannot be compiled. Now, I don't know why before we were getting that error, actual error. This is what I had seen in the past.
So what were you returning before?
Yeah,
just a few seconds ago, you were returning. So I think that part of the problem here is we went from returning a list of strings of some kind. Like we basically had to replace what mapget was doing.
I'm with you, right? Yeah, I'm with you on that. So let's try something different. What if I say, well, this shouldn't really matter, right? I can just say var y equals, just putting some stuff in there, right? I should still be able to step through this code if it works, right? So let's
think if you start off by returning x and then create a new y, as long as you don't change what this particular method is returning, I think it'll handle it. And this is a gut feel. This is just a gut feeling on my part.
Let's find out. I mean, we're winging it here.
And you can save yourself a little time if you go check the box in hot reload to say do it on save, or you can do it later. It doesn't have to be done now.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, go check that box. Yeah. So here's my guess. My guess, and this is just a guess, we're placing a friendly wager, is I think that as long as we don't change the return type of that Lambda, I think that the little hot reload compiler will keep doing its thing.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and go var y, var y equals, I know I'm not using string interpolation, but I'm just being a little lazy here. Hello world again, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know that's not our favorite syntax for this, but let's change that to be a y. The schema is the same as what you're saying, right? So
save it. Don't even push that button. Just save it.
Yeah, I'm not going to push it because it should have done it already.
Well, you haven't saved it yet. You haven't saved it.
Oh, I have to say. Sorry, I have to save. Okay.
Yeah. So that should hot reload. Boom.
Like that. So now, if I do this, Hello world again. So that's good because that gives me the flexibility that if I don't change the signature, right, I probably don't want to change the parameters or the return type, but anything in here, and that's much more. That's a lot. That's a big difference, I think. So
and I think the reason why is so it actually turns out we are talking about a new feature of C#, but it's a feature that like you don't realize it's a feature until someone tells you, which is that Lambda expressions can now be inferred by the compiler. In other words, I don't know if you've ever tried to do this, Andy or Rich or anyone watching. If you've said like, hey, I just want to use this minimal syntax, so I'll say func and I'll create the whole signature equals and then write the Lambda expression. You can now var that because the compiler can now infer the type of a natural the return type of a Lambda expression when it makes sense to do so. And that feature was required because otherwise, what would the signature of map get be? Map get has to be able to take any kind of Lambda, not just a specific one, right?
Yeah.
So they needed to implement this feature to the language. The funny thing about it is when I tell you this, you're like, really? That's a new feature? I couldn't, it's the kind of thing where you squint and say like, I couldn't do that already. But
it's funny how you just take, we just don't even think about it.
Take it for granted. So I think what's happening is I think that this works, but when earlier you said, well, instead of returning a list of strings, let's return a string, you were changing the Lambda's return type, which actually changes the signature of the map get method. And I think that was just like, boom, you're destroying the Asp Net pipeline, right?
Yeah, the pipeline.
Just like when you
something like that. Either way, if we're not exactly right, we're close, right? Like, but we kind of narrowed down what we can do, what we can't do, which is really cool, and I appreciate that. But I want to keep it going here and show a couple other features that I think are important. So first of all, not everything we have is going to be a get, right? So that's the first thing. So obviously there's a bunch of other verbs that we can do. And let's see, does that, oh my God, look at that. I try to zoom in and everything is covering, the tooltip is covering, that's just terrible. Let's see if I can do that again. So, well, no, nothing good in that list. Okay, so bottom line is I have access to map get. I can do map post, right? I can do put. I can do delete. I can do those verbs, right? And a good API, a good RESTful API will take advantage of those things, right? So of course we have access to those things, right? I also want to talk about couple things. So let's go back to the get, right? So we're talking about how these methods could get long, right? Mm-hmm. Now I also showed dependency injection, and so you could inject something in, and typically I got to be honest, in my work, what I typically do is I inject in something like, I'll call it like a shopping cart orchestrator. I know I'm just going to shorthand and call it S because I don't feel like doing too much, right? And my whole method would probably be something that looks like, maybe there's like a try catch around it with some error handling down here. And then here I simply say like return S dot load cart or, whatever it is that it needs to do, right? And so these methods never really get too long because I'm using the dependency injection to do like all the work, something like that. But there's some other ways that we can do things here. So, for instance, instead of having this this lambda here, I could also do something like, let me see. Let's say I have a method in here, and it could be down here if I want it to be, I guess. It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
It just wants a delegate, right? So.
Well, I can just do this, right? I can say, here's a local function.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
And then I can simply say, let's just do a new one. I'll keep that there for other stuff. No, you know what? let's get rid of all this so my thing is back to normal. So let's come up here and I can do app.map_get, and I could say to map to function. I'm just naming it. It's a route, but you know, whatever. So we know it's something different. And I can say local. Right? And
a couple things, right? I think you also need is the slash required in front of map to function?
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I'm actually asking you. I wasn't sure if it was inferred.
You definitely do. You always need that slash to
okay.
to find the thing. And that's it. That works, right? Now,
yeah.
You know, and I guess if there's parameters for it, I would probably just put them here, I guess. Yep. I haven't even tried doing that. Let's just see if there's like string S. Is that what you do? I don't even know. I didn't look at that, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, put in high. Or whatever.
It does not like that. I'm not sure how you pass a parameter.
So, I wonder if the reason why is because I wonder if you could put a lambda there. I know that seems odd.
I was thinking about doing something like, you know,
the problem is it's no longer a delegate once you throw.
I know, right?
String on. However, if you do that, see, now the funny thing about it is how do you pass?
But it doesn't like that. It wants it to be an actual. Wait.
Well, you got to put in a value there, right? S doesn't mean anything, and you. Oh, I see what you're saying.
But wait, maybe I had it wrong beforehand. Let me just
no, you're fine. You can't do that though. You can't do that because that's no longer a delegate.
Yeah. But that seems to work.
Yeah. That's odd though, because well, go ahead. I don't know what that'll do.
Yeah, no, I don't know either, right? So anyway, but you can use these functions, right? That's one way of doing it.
Right.
You can also map it to like a class, right?
Yeah.
So let's get rid of this local function here. So I don't know if this will even work, but I had that data service. Let's try that one. So I could say map.map_get just put that thing in there, and I'll say data service dot. Well, you know what? I guess I'd have to have the instance of the class. I'd probably have to do data var s equals. I have to have the data service, I think, to do this. Right, and then I could say something like get strings. That was what the method was called, right?
Right.
So you can do that. Like I can map it to this. So I can map it to a static method. If it was a static method, I wouldn't need the instance and stuff like that. Right. So there's a bunch of ways you can do that kind of stuff, right? It's good to know about them. You know, I think different people will use different use cases and things like that. Now, the next thing people are probably wondering about is like, well, I need to pass in parameters to my method here, right? So let's say I have some kind of route like customer, and I'll do like slash, where's my, I could do this if I want, right? And that would be like, now I've got a part of my URL is expecting like it's going to be, localhost :30, 3000, whatever, /customer/1 or customer2, right? And then in here you would say like, get the customer for, whatever it is, where, for customer ID, right? Instead, what I'll just simply do is I'll say return, so now I still have to put this over here. So I'll say int cust ID, right? So now if I do that, I can say, you know what? And I actually have an example. Instead of typing, I'll put this in here a little bit. This will be a little better. Make this a little easier for me. So now, oh, it wrapped kind of weird here. Let's put that back the way we're used to seeing it. And well, I mean, I could put brackets around this, but it's not even necessary, right? But I could do the whole thing in one line if I want to. I think that's well.
You gotta now that you put it in braces, you got to have a return, I think. But
oh yeah, you're probably right about that. Yeah, thank you. That's a good catch. Just trying to make it a little easier to read.
Then one more.
There, yeah, this. Well, whatever. I'll put it back the way it was. How about that? I have a demo set up, so I do it the way it's supposed to be done, right? So I'm just going to wrap this just to make it a little more readable. But in this case, now I've got this customer ID in here, right? I've got an order ID, okay, and then I've got two parameters to my Lambda. So it's going to look in here and it's going to pull them out of the URL, right? And I'm going to return $, this query, interpolate, whatever string here, blah blah blah. So this is a cool one. I'll actually run this just so we see how this works. Like, this is pretty cool. Let's see. Oh, it always opens in the wrong window. So I can execute this, try it out. Now, what's cool is that Swagger, if you haven't seen that before, I can put in whatever number I want in here, right? And Swagger will execute it. But you think, well, this isn't part of the route. Like, why is Andy putting it in this box? Well, that's just Swagger making things easy for us, right? So it does that. It returns customer 3, order 5, but it does show me the URL. These are, in fact, part of the path, right? And I can always just come over here and do the same thing. And there it is, customer 3, order 5, right? So don't confuse the fact that Swagger is an app, but it's building the URL for me where these values are, right? So let's see if I can do. No, I don't think I can do this. I was going to try to do it without stopping, but I don't think I can. I can also get my values from the query string, right? So we've got, the URL parameters, and we also have another option for query string parameters. So in that case, I'll throw this little sample out here, right? So now I've got this thing. It's just called query string. It's the name of the, right? And now the URL doesn't have customer ID and order ID, right? But my constructor, my Lambda is still expecting these two values, right? So it's going to figure out, well, I didn't find them over here in the URL, right? So I'm going to go look in another place for them. I mean, it's just great the way this stuff works. If I run this one again, what happened? I think here it comes. Okay. So in this case, as a matter of fact, I think I can just do it like this, make life easy for us. So in this case, I'll just put it right in there, putting it right in the query string, as you can see up here, right? Question mark, customer ID equals 1, ampersand, order ID equals 2. And that did not work. Did I put that in the, what did I just do? Oh, I know why. I was cheating, but I'll just check this, I'll show you. I'm using 7052 here, but 718, right? I knew that was what the problem was. So of course you can find it by that port. And I'm doing it wrong again, so whatever I'm doing.
The double, it looks like it was the colon was doubled. Yeah.
I'll just make it easy and I'll just run it here. Try it out, and we can see the customer ID is 33 and the order ID is 444. Execute it. Here it will give me a good example that I don't have to worry about typing. It is in fact on the query string, and here it is, customer order, right? Okay, so we got query string. You can also bring out things from the body. If you want to use in a get anything from the body, you would have to do something like remember this from body kind of attribute. You'd have to do something like that, but I think I need to add a reference to that. So let's just not even put that in there. Now, of course, we got to take a look at doing a post, right? So what if I want to do a post? And let's just try this here. Looking at. So here I'm adding a class called user, right, which has a username and a password. I've got a post method posting to the user. Again, if this was a controller, I'd have a controller named user controller, right? And I'd have a post method with a HTTP post attribute above it, right? In this case, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm going to return the username and the password. I mean, that, you know, I'm not even going to run it. Like that's we know it's going to work, right? It's taking the user. It's not taking a username and a password. It's taking a user. And we've come to maybe expect that kind of stuff from ASP.NET in general, right? Binding of parameters. And it's going to figure out that, I'm well, I mean, it's just the way it works. I'm sorry, I'm like losing my mind here for a second, but this will just work, right? It will. If I give it a here, I'll show you. Watch. Oh, what did I do wrong there? Oh, you know why? I think I have this in here. I mean, I don't know if this is the problem, but this probably should be down here. Okay, try that. Give this one a sec. There's a decent amount of stuff to show on this thing, I guess, on this feature, right? This so if I look at the post, you could see that it takes it's going to return, this schema, right? So if I try it out, I love the way it populates this thing, and it puts in the JSON for me, and I can put in Andy, and I can put, of course, it's probably very hard to read, but don't worry about that. Password 1. Oh, you know what? Is it not showing? I'm looking at. Oh, there it is. No, you know what it is? The stream is just behind on my screen. I thought maybe it wasn't showing it. So if what's cool about this, I guess is what I was trying to say, is this isn't really an object, right? This is just a JSON, object, right?
Right.
But it figures out when it comes in. This is what I was trying to get at earlier, and I was having a hard time getting this out of my head. The way the binding of those parameters work, I've always just assumed that what it says is, well, I don't have a user, but I have something that looks like a user. It's almost like duck typing, right? It's going to say, hey, I can deserialize this thing as a user or whatever it does, and it provides the parameters and stuff like that, right? So that works. Really don't have a whole lot more to show. There's certainly one thing I want to show, which is that if I wanted to do something, well, let's take a look. Okay, how about this? Good old async, right? We always like to have asynchronous programming on our APIs, right? So in this case, again, I'm just calling the route async. That's not really the thing.
Yeah, right.
All I do is put the async keyword in front of the Lambda, right? And of course, I have to await something in there, right? So you can't do that without awaiting something. But in this case, I'm just using the old task from result.
That might have been a database call, right?
it might have been a database call, right? So I guess, but again, look how easy that is. I can just put it right in here. Now, if you're doing some really simple stuff and all your API calls are sort of like one line like this, I mean, this is pretty slick, like whatever we do here, even if I was calling some, service, I'm just S, and I could do something like, S dot get data. Like that's like a one line of code. It's not going to compile. This isn't a real thing, but that's a pretty slick way to do, low overhead and have an API controller. You know what I mean? I think it still reads pretty well. I'm always concerned with readability. But let's just get rid of that. I like this tool Karnak I'm using because it shows, when I hit Control Z, controls things like that. But I have to admit, when you do a lot of Control Z's, it gets kind of annoying. It fills my whole screen with Control Z's. So, and I think the last thing that I want to talk about is the different responses, right? And this isn't really new to minimal API, but what I'd rather do with my methods, I'd rather do something like map get, and I'll call this like, customer, or like whatever I'm doing, right? Map my customer. Oops, sorry. You should have warned me about that. You did last time, /customer. And I'm going to say I want to go to like a method here. So I'll do this. So I might want to say return foo. What did I do wrong there?
You need the arrow symbol.
Yeah. Goes to, right? Okay.
Goes to.
So I could return foo, right? But what I like is to say something like results okay. Pass foo into that, right? And I could say something like, what if I take a parameter and I say customer, let's just do int cust ID, right? And I might say if cust ID, so by the way, there's what is that, IntelliCode, right? Let's go back on that. Look at that. This is tab to accept. Knew what I wanted to do. Pretty good. I'll take that. And I might say return results bad request, because let's say 0 is not allowed or something like that, right? So I could do bad request, and I could say if whatever. I could do a lot of different things in here. Customer ID equals 1. For whatever reason, 1's not allowed either. In my little logic here, I can say results dot not found, right? And so I kind of like using these result objects. I find it really helpful. So of course, if I do okay, I'm going to get a 200 response. If I give it a 0, I'm going to get a 400, right? And of course, not found is going to be my 404. And this isn't necessarily part of minimal API either. I just want to be clear that, we still have access to that, right? We still have access to that. And you know what? I guess I said this was the last thing, but thinking about, like, we still have access to all the other stuff too. For instance, if I want to go up here and say, I think this is the right spot to do it. Authorize. Now I don't have the, I'd have to add a reference. But let's say I was using authentication, right? And I want to, just like I would do in my controller, right, Chris? I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure some people watching are used to doing like controller style stuff. Well, I can still put my authorize attribute. In other words, like I'm not losing features because that's, I guess, what I really want to show here. Just because we're using minimal APIs, I'm not losing this feature of authorize. I'm not losing my results.bad request and those things, right? It's still an API. And I don't know, what do you think of this? I'll just throw it back to you. What do you think of this?
So, there's a lot that I like about the concise nature of it. I think that if you're already familiar with the controller-based web APIs, that I don't know if you're familiar with it and comfortable with it. I'm not sure that you're gaining anything because really, it's not like you don't have access to all of this. But if that form has ever turned you off to using Asp Net Core, because you say, gosh, there's like a lot of ceremony here and I'm not interested in it, then I think this is more attractive.
Now, I'm just going to say, I don't know. I haven't validated this comment, but in the chat, Keith Nicholas says map get is faster. So, I'm interpreting that to say that our viewer is saying that map get is, if I go back to the old example, right, that is faster than this for some reason. Now, I don't know.
Even performance-wise, it's faster.
I think I took it to mean performance faster.
Yeah, I could buy that.
What's that? It might be.
Right.
And if, I'm not trying to call out our viewer, right? We appreciate the comment. If you have a link to that, performance-wise, if you have a link to that, feel free to
we just didn't. We just haven't tested it. That's all. But I could certainly buy it because, whatever overhead's involved, not just in running the controller, but everything in controller base. That's there might be some boilerplate code in there that's looking for model binding and looking for filters and all those things, and it's like, well, that's just gone.
Yeah, Ancient Coders agreeing, by the way. Yes, mini APIs, minimum APIs, have performance advantage compared to using a controller. So that is excellent. I got to be honest, I did not know that, right? I think, Chris, we can say, well, we've got a consensus. We've got two people who say they know it. I'm on board, right?
It is, yeah.
We'll call that a fact at this point. We've got fact checking. And I appreciate both of the viewers jumping in the chat and saying that. So, so that's cool, right? My only concern is that this could get messy pretty quickly. And so I would love to find out if there's a way. I would love to be able to say, I want to take these three get, like a get, a post, and a get, or whatever these three are, and put them in a file, right? Yep. And then sort of like just break it up into different files, because I don't know, I'm a control freak. So Keith Nicholas here does say I split them into modules. So I don't know how to do that. That's cool. That would be the solution I'd be looking for. Because again, I learned this stuff like, I don't want to be bragging. Like, I learned this stuff like the other day. I'm not trying to say I'm the expert here. We're just sharing it. Don't keep them at the top level. Yeah, that's interesting. So if you don't keep them at the top level, that might be a way to.
There's an MVP. His name is Nick Chapsis, who has actually, the YouTube video is out there, and I'll provide the link in the chat, and folks here may already know about it, where he basically did a video saying, hey, I really like minimal APIs, but once you start to build an API of any size, you may want to start splitting some things out. And he just simply says, here's one way to do it. Here's the way I am doing it. And he presents a refactoring where you do begin to start moving, maybe you'll move an endpoint into its own file, right? Like all of customer is in a file, and in your example, all of user is in a file. So I think it's a great I think it's a great a video, and at the same time, I actually think it's possible that I don't know for sure that this is true that our viewers have watched it, because I think that same exact video is where he uses benchmark .NET and basically says, "Hey, I'm going to benchmark this stuff." I can't say that I remembered that offhand when we were talking about it, but now it's sort of coming back to me a little bit. But I'm gonna get this in here.
Yeah, I like what Keith Nicholas is saying there. I'll make an extension class method / at the top level. I'll do something like app.map well, that's probably module, right? That method will do the maps for, yeah, I mean, I could see there's some really cool ways to do that. And so that would probably make me a little happier. Again, maybe for simple stuff, this is great, right? Having it all in here. But I think what everyone is saying is that this could get messy fast.
Yeah, and so, I think Nick has really taken to minimal APIs. He's got about 3 or 4 videos about them. He was featured on, I'm not sure if it was the .NET Doc Show, but it's definitely in the .NET channel. He was recently featured in one of their stand-up, one of the the various live shows, and I think it's someone to check out, because he's really supplied a lot of content here, including performance, including a defense of what he likes about them.
I mean, here's the thing though, Chris. I learned this yesterday, so I probably know more than this guy. No, I probably know more. I'm going to say I know more than this guy, Nick, who's done videos about it, who's been on the .NET stand-up about it. He's been working with it for, a year plus. I learned it yesterday. So I'm
I'm just saying, I think it's great.
We should get this guy on the show. Yeah.
I think it's great to show how quickly you can pick it up. But then, folks who leave our show, if they're not aware, here's a great launch pad to go on, right? Because I always think it's nice to have more resources to go look at, including, I don't know if I actually mentioned it. Maybe I did. Did I mention it out loud? Is that I'm excited to watch and have not watched yet Sean Wildermuth's presentation as part of .NET Conf called Real World Minimal APIs, where I think he sort of supposes how a quote unquote real application would take advantage of these things. I only got to watch like the first few minutes, and one of the first things he starts out by saying is real world is in quotes, because we haven't seen this in the wild very long. But he's sort of supposing, he's kind of supposing, like, I took a look at it, and based on what I'm kind of seeing, this is kind of what I think. So and definitely I really like Ancient Coder's response there, that you could use Steve Smith's architecture and apply it to minimal APIs. And Steve Smith talks about clean architecture at .NET Conf, right? So there's clean architecture with ASP.NET Core 6 is his talk. .NET Conf, that playlist, 82 videos. I've seen like 6 of them. I wish, it takes a while to get through them all. There's a great talk on source generators that I can't wait to watch, and of course the .NET MAUI stuff, microservice stuff, Blazor. We didn't even talk about Blazor tonight, right?
Oh. I mean, we could spend, we could talk for all the stuff all the new stuff, it will get us till next November. Like we could fill the year, right? Yeah. And then we'll finally get to next November when they'll have, I don't know, but I assume they're going to have like .NET. I don't know. Is it every year now? Maybe it can be, who knows?
So what you're saying is we should have no problem getting topics to talk about.
We should, but we still will, right?
Oh, of course. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I like the deep dive nature, right? Where it's a little bit more than a half-hour talk. Like, let's actually play with code and see things work and see things break. There's value in that, mm-hmm. that I really like. And again, it might be interesting to take that angle, maybe with some of the speakers. It'd be fantastic to talk to them and say, what if we dove a little deeper and kind of just talked about some stuff live? I think that approach is kind of fun. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, pretty
I do
cool,
too.
Andy. I mean, one thing that we didn't show here is back in your data service. Can you head over to the
Yeah.
data service.cs?
Well, yeah, this is just a
So
one more.
check out a feature here that we didn't talk about today. Is look at that namespace declaration at the top,
Oh,
and how
yeah.
your code is all to the left.
Yeah, so it's as opposed to, I guess what you're saying is this, right?
Yep. And then you got to get rid of that semicolon because
Right.
it's not happy anymore. The semicolon on line 1. But that's generally how we would do things, and then everything would be indented. But
you know what? It's another one of those things like we were saying before. We were used to it. Like it didn't bother me
yeah,
because I've been doing it this way since forever, right? But this is nice.
yeah,
This is
it's a
clean.
little quality of life feature, right?
It is.
Because,
it is like a nice one. And we also didn't talk about the global usings,
right,
which is cool.
right.
But we could save that for another show.
Yeah. Another thing I'm interested in, can you go take a look at the project file? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Oh, and Keith Nicholas is talking about the new nullable feature, which I don't know if that's what you're going to say, but in the project file.
That's what I was about to say, Keith. I'm glad we have Keith here. I arranged that. I arranged that with Keith Nicholas beforehand.
Yeah. So enable nullable is nullable is enabled, and implicit usings is enabled by default, right? Yeah. So the nullable stuff is interesting. Now I've been looking at the nullable stuff in some other work I'm doing. I didn't really. I kind of ignored it in this demo. And so there might be some squigglies here and there, and I was sort of just letting it go.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, we watched this nullable feature develop, right? And I kind of like that it's enabled now. Mm-hmm. Because it's one of those features that I always thought, like once I saw it, I'm like, this is a good way to do things. But I was never going to turn it on, I think, because I'm just so used to not having them nullable. And so, so if you look at where was I'm just trying to think, do I have anything?
It might be back in your user.
Oh, that's where it is, in the user, right? That is going to be this user here, right?
I think it's complaining because it's saying, well, let's see. Right. It was just kind of warning you, basically saying like, look, you've got a string here that could be null and you don't seem to acknowledge that, right?
Right. So one of the solutions it's going to offer me, I could declare it as nullable, right?
Right.
Or I could generate a constructor, right?
Yes.
And
right.
If I do this is kind of interesting. I noticed this when I was working on stuff before. If I do that, my squigglies went away here.
Right.
Right. But now it's telling me, well, you have a constructor, but you should probably be doing something in your constructor, right? Like username equals, whatever, right? Andy, right?
Basically, the compiler's going to follow you around and make sure that you're not allowing it to be null without it yelling at you, without warning you. Like, hold on a second.
Right.
This value could now be null, and we don't, I'm trying to keep you from falling into that trap. There are many ways to deal with it. The new record types lead you towards a non-nullable world where you've just implemented it yourself, which is fine.
Right. So I started playing with the record. It's really interesting because you mentioned it, and I see again, Keith Nicholas mentioned the record. Yeah. I started using records on a project this week, and I hadn't really done much with it beforehand. But I do like the record. I really like this public record user, and then I can just do string username. Look at that, it's helping me for it, right?
Yeah.
I think
you got to give it like a user 2 or something to get by, but you're done. You're basically done. Like the class is written.
How cool is that? So now, if I wanted to, I'm just going to throw some code in here. Even this is a weird place to do this, but I need a place to type some code. User2 equals, and I could say,
you could do that, and then you could use, you could even use an object initializer, right? Which is the thing I really like.
You could do a couple things, right? You could do that.
Yep.
But what's interesting here, user2 dot, and if I try to go to password, equals and whatever, it should show me that it's a NET only property, which is cool, right? I don't know if you can't really see that too well. That didn't work too well, but I like these things. I like that they're so simple. And sure, there's other ways to do this. So, but here's another thing I wanted to talk about while we're just going random here, right? Which do you like better? Do you like, well, let's just do that again. Let's put that back. Do you like user2 equals new?
Yeah, that's a target typed new expression is what you just did there.
We got a couple of options here, right? Let's just say, and it's probably not going to compile because I'm going to do them all right next to each other. I could also do var user, I'll just put a 3 on here, var user 3.
You got to take user away from one of them. Well, okay, so the top one you want to say is a new user 2, right?
Oh, 2. That
in the bottom one.
No, it's really confusing me. So in this case,
that one you just take it away. Yep.
Yeah. Wait, this needs a user 2.
And that'll be a user 4, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Sure. There's one more
question. The general question is, wait, is there another one that I'm missing?
Yeah. And I think it's important to throw in here. It's just me though. So do like a user 2. And there's actually more than one more, but this is good enough. And then say like user 5 or whatever, who cares? Equals new, and let's use the target typed expressions, but leave the parentheses blank.
Right. Oh, I know what you're going to say.
And do an object initializer, right?
Yeah, right. Username equals Andy.
Yeah.
Password.
Right. I include this for completeness because I would now ask the question, what do you like here?
Except this one's unhappy. What did I do wrong here? Is no
maybe you can't do that. Oh, you know what?
Isn't it new user 2?
No, because you can imply it now.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have to use the object initializer.
Oh no, it could be because right. Keith Nicholas says it's only because it's a record, not because it's if it was a class, you could do this. Right.
That could be.
Because again, this thing doesn't like you to have that, right? So you just can't do that. But anyway, let's just stick to these for now. And if it was a class, hang on. Oh, I can't. I'll be a pain.
The thing about it is I feel like I thought that was a situation.
Let's just say pretend this works, right? So the bottom line is, which one do you like best, right? At first, I've always been well, of course, we always used to have to do this one, right? We had to do line 67. Then we got var, and we all know that this isn't really the reason for a var, right? There's some real good reasons why you sometimes need a var, but we get the benefit of saying, hey, I'll let this be dynamically typed. It's strongly typed, but it's dynamically, whatever. But then this one came along on line 69, and I felt really weird about this, quite frankly. But if you're reading from right to left, if you're reading from left to right, between the two of these, I think this one makes more sense now, like from a readability standpoint. So, and I move things around. Ancient Coder says she likes 69 here.
So there's var, right? Which is inferring what user 3 is. And then there's the target, and I gotta love the name, target typed new expression, which is what's now on line 70. 67 is classic. What's on 75 right now, the reason I wanted to bring it up is I know that there's the whole issue with records and classes and so on, is that I do like object initializers in certain cases. However, there are probably cases where maybe not everything has to be initialized is one way to look at it. You know, it's like you're filling out a large structure, but there are default values that are good sometimes, and that way I don't have to write 10,000 constructors to be like, well, in this case, and in that case, and in this case.
Right.
I am still a little unsure. There's a use case where I like var, and it's the use case where, well, I guess there's two of them. One of them is, quite frankly, a lot of times when you're using link, the IEnumerable that comes out is hard to figure out ahead of time. So thank you, var, for figuring it out for me, right?
Yeah.
I also like the case when it's possible that the code, the type that's going to be used might change on you, because maybe you're still kind of figuring your code out, you know, and so the type changes, and oh wait, now I got to go change this, otherwise the code's going to break. But I do respect the target type new expression for basically saying, look, here's the type.
So Loka is commenting about there's a new feature that can display the actual type of the var, and yes, there is. Now, this is interesting because on my work computer, it was annoying me, and I turned it off. But I wonder if those settings are following me based on my account. Does that happen? Do settings follow you?
It's supposed to. There's some are supposed to, yeah.
I forgot about that, but yeah, let's go in and take a look at that, because what that is, it took me a while to find it. Where was that? But yeah, I turned it off because I found it a little annoying. Let me see. Oh, and Keith Nicholas says Ryder has had that for a while. A lot of people like Ryder.
I don't know the name of it, so I can't even tell you the name of the feature. That's the problem.
It took me a long time to find it.
If I was trying to search for it with Control Q, I don't know the name of the feature, so I
had a hard time finding it, and then I turned it off. I don't think it was under here. It's not. What was that called? Oh, I found it. I turned it off.
Oh, I wonder if I can guess it out of Control Q. Let me look real quick. So
it might be right here. Wait, formatting. No.
Look, for the longest time, I've hovered over the var keyword to find out what it was, but I understand that there is. So there's a var preferences. I wonder if that's it.
Odd Rationale says var users equals new user 2. That's the one, I guess that's your preferred model with the var, right? And yeah, I wonder if that's also because we've gotten used to it now. I wish I could remember where that was. Because I want to turn it on because it's kind of cool to see. But I don't remember where the heck it is. Extensions, fonts.
So you're telling me that it shows up like as a code lens type addition or something?
Yeah, I found it a little distracting, is I guess what I'm saying.
Okay, because I have Visual Studio 2022 up, and I'm not seeing it. So that makes me wonder, why is it off? I can't even explain why. I just don't know. I mean, I didn't do it on purpose, right? It's just, I don't know how to turn that feature on.
Oh, wait, it's hints. Here it is. It was under hints. Okay. Show inline parameter name hints.
Inline parameter name hints.
Okay. Type hints. I found it. So I'm going to turn them on. And
okay, yeah.
so here, see, so Loka, thanks for reminding us about this one. This is kind of interesting. I don't know what you guys think about this. I found this to be a little noisy, personally, but I think it's different strokes. You know, of course, it doesn't matter, right? But I don't know. I don't know if I like it.
So I feel
Um,
like I know that Writer has this. I've seen that. I feel like
yeah.
ReSharper also has this, but I haven't installed ReSharper in a long time. I don't have anything against it. I just haven't installed it in a long time. Uh, I don't know. I don't I don't hate it. I think it takes a little getting used to, like, well, what is code and what isn't. But that's actually not too bad because I can see the little opaque square behind it. Um, I actually think that I have some colleagues that use the ReSharper version, because I feel like when they share their screens, I see the type hints. Um, I don't know if it's default, and I wonder why you saw this and you went and turned it off, and I installed VS 2022 and I didn't do anything, and yet they didn't appear for me. So I don't know what the deal is there.
Yeah. Um, these guys, I'm trying to follow the chat. Something about my line 75. We can fix the squigglies if we say var. Oh, if I change this to a var? I just
No,
got.
the problem is you can't use a target type new expression here. You'll have to say, like,
Yeah, we're saying pretend this works, but that's because it's a record. It's not a class.
it's
Maybe
only
people might
because
miss that.
I wanted to point out that there are cases where I really like object initializers. Um, that's all.
Yeah, so if we use it as a user, that was a good call. I don't know why I didn't think of that. We have this user. We have a user class already. So this works if it's a class, right? So it's kind of funny because inside of my constructor for user, I'm creating another user, but that's not the point. Yeah, so that does clean that up, right? But we kind of knew that was the problem already, because the chat is like all over the place today. You guys are coming in with all kinds of
It's
tips
awesome.
and thoughts, but this is just there's some reasons why some of these features are there. Like some of these things we need. Like we all know var serves some really important purposes, and some of these, but it also just gives us like this flexibility where we have options, right? But I'm going to go in. By the way, I'm going to turn this off because this is making me crazy. This like, so you start to see this thing everywhere. I see map post pattern user, right? Like I'm going to make this a little. Sorry, I'm going to go back to smaller. So like these little tips now are all over the place, right? And I find like I like it better when it's implied, I think.
I don't know. I don't know. I
So
wonder if I
anyway,
used it for a little while, how I would feel about it.
so here it is, by the way. It's under Tools, Options, Text Editor, C# Advanced. And now there's a lot of settings you could do. So I turned it off for everything. Display inline parameter name hints. But I could turn off literals. I could do it like on a very one by one type of thing, right? If I find some of them I like and some of them I don't. But I was just going like this. I was just like, that's it. I'm just turning it off. It's so funny. There's so many options and settings in here that like I wouldn't know what half these things are. Show inheritance margin? I don't even know what that means. It's just like so many things you can do in here, right? Split string literals on enter. That's cool.
I feel like we lost Rich or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe we did. Did he bail? I don't know. That's interesting. But my point was that there are a lot of options in Visual Studio. My gosh, the amount of users they have for this thing that all want different features. You really can customize the heck out of this thing. But so I learned something new today. I guess I forgot. I forgot that these options these things we set follow us with our account, because I set that on my work computer and it turned it off on this computer. How cool is that? Yes, and Keith Nicholas also talking about the without writing code without the nulls, and I want to get there, right? Like I haven't put a lot of time into it yet, but I'm with you on that. It's quite different.
Whoops.
Is that?
I meant to type that as myself, and I messed it up.
But
no, that's a big focus for me. I definitely want to just enable nullable references, which I think is a funny name for it, and then just go with it, right? But for some reason, I don't know if the sound quality has changed, but for some reason on Andy's end, I'm hearing like this robotic sound, so I don't know.
Well, but hey, sometimes I can fix that. Hang on, let me try something here. Tell me if it sounds better now. Does it sound better?
No, it's kind of it's not for me. I don't know about the audience, so I'm not going to guess.
Well, I'm Mr. Roboto, you know. So why don't we wrap it up? It's getting late.
Yeah.
I had a good time tonight.
Okay. It's just me then. Yeah. Just fine.
Yeah, I had a good time with this. Thank you for the all the chat. I mean, it's great. I mean, getting ideas and tips from people. It's the community, right? This is what it's all about. It's great. Love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly, I'm really glad to see a lot of folks here. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, be interesting to know how some of the folks who maybe we haven't seen in chat before have found us, and it's fine. We really appreciate everybody who chats with us, but at the same time, I want to acknowledge folks who maybe just are here and lurking, and that's what you want to do. We are just happy that you're here. So we appreciate everybody that joined us live tonight. If you're watching in the future on YouTube at youtube.com/thedevtalkshow, then leave us a comment and let us know what you think of these new features. I think the C# community is going to debate these for quite a while, and that's okay. You should use what makes you happy and productive. That's the most important thing, I think. So that's right. Lurking is important too. I really do believe that. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge folks who joined us, and we are very happy to have this conversation. This is why we do the show. I think that Andy and Rich would agree, is that we miss the in-person meetups and conferences, and even though we're all working to get back to that, there is a future for us to get together online and chat this way and write some code and experience what we like about what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I feel like I looked through most of this one.
Yeah, that's right. People, we're glad you're here. So again, thanks to everyone. So hey, join us next week. I want to do a quick shout out to Rich for keeping things running on the stream, Andy for preparing that demo. That's definitely, it's always an effort involved in all of this stuff. So thank you both. We'll try to remember Rich is coming up on Philly.net in December.
Mid-December.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
What day is that?
Philly.net's thinking about a code camp. So, we'll make sure to mention it here. As far as the Dev Talk Show goes, are we here next Wednesday? That's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we were going to.
We're not.
We are not here. So
right.
In the United States, next Thursday is Thanksgiving. We won't be here next Wednesday. So we will not be back until, I think that makes it December 1st.
Correct.
Yeah. So we'll be back December 1st, 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern. Keep an eye out on our Twitter, the Dev Talk Show. We'll try to get an announcement out there, or if you know about the meetup. And if you don't know about the meetup, meetup.com, search for the Dev Talk Show and you will find us. Other than that, thank you all very much for being here. And I know we want to get out of here. It's almost 11 here on the East Coast. So thanks for everything for my co-hosts, Rich Ross and Andy Schwamm. We'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.